Hello once again, nerds. We are doing the live show again, and it is March, and it is the last week of March. This will be... Oops, I'm typing. Thank you for joining me in post because, again, this time we had people announce that they were going to attend and we're looking at an empty audience. Hopefully, since we are here during open business hours during the Roost, some of the patrons who happen to be here will join the conversation, but if not, it's just you and me, and that's fine by me as well. So, first half, like usual, is going to be headlines. Since we're not doing our regular headlines shows for the week, this is both headline shows wrapped up into one. And there's to start things off, we have only one thing to talk about in the music news, and that is we got the first of the, I believe it was 5 Rammstein videos that they are singles, I guess, that they were talking about. They released a video for it. And I literally just watched it as I was setting up for this, and it's pretty epic. Definitely go watch that. I will include a link in the description, but this record, based off of this one song, is not going to disappoint. So that's all we have there. Next up, we are going to be talking about Krypton. TV news, rather, and specifically, we're starting with Krypton. We got the first trailer for season 2 was posted to Sci-Fi's Twitter account. It's up on YouTube by now, I'm sure, but it was posted to Sci-Fi's Twitter account just a few days ago. You can go watch that for your first peek at their interpretation of Doomsday, which is going to be interesting. Next up on the list is The Mandalorian. We previously talked about guest appearances on The Mandalorian by other directors. Some of them are going to be directing specific episodes. A few of them were going to be both directing and having cameos. Well, the first of those cameos was kinda sorta revealed just a few days ago on Jon Favreau's Instagram account. Taika Waititi was seen in studio because Jon Favreau posted a picture of him doing voice work apparently for IG-88, the droid bounty hunter that is kind of infamous in the extended universe stuff, in the old lore, the old mythology, however we're supposed to refer to it these days, in the extended Star Wars universe. He could be voicing somebody else. This could be a trick. I don't think it is. Taika is pretty invested in his Disney ties these days, even going so far as talking to Feige about getting another Thor movie going, with Chris Hemsworth potentially even signing on for one more movie to do that. So Taika is pretty in deep. So if he's that deep, it's not too much of a stretch to imagine him doing the voice for a potentially recurring role in the Mandalorian series. So that's pretty awesome. Next up is a really interesting bit about Starship Troopers. Jake Busey was talking to HN Entertainment, and hnentertainment.com, I believe, is the precise website. He claims that there is talks to reboot Starship Troopers. Well, not necessarily reboot, but revisit Starship Troopers with he and Casper Van Dien reprising their roles from the original movie. They've been talking to Ed Neumeyer, who I believe is and I'll double check it, but I'm pretty sure he is the executive producer for the original movie. Google is a beautiful thing. Yes. Okay, so yes, that is who he was. And I really dig the original Starship Troopers movie. They made 2 sequels that were less than great. The second of which even Casper Van Dien came back for, and it still wasn't that good. I think they just kind of captured lightning in a bottle with the first one. So if this gets turned into a series, we will hopefully see it get better, though I don't think that's going to be a thing necessarily. Next up, we're talking about the Apple reveal, Apple TV Plus. Was just a few days ago. They have reportedly have spent $1 billion, that's billion with a B, on just the content alone for this new platform. This is going to be their streaming platform, and they have some heavy hitters coming in behind them. Steven Spielberg, Oprah, a bunch of different big Hollywood names are backing them up on this venture, and it's going to be really interesting to see what happens. Definitely Netflix and Amazon have taken note of this. That's a lot of money. I just can't get over the billion. That's a lot of freaking money. So I don't know if it's officially rolled out. I know they did the reveal event, but I don't think anything is live on it yet. I could be wrong. If I am, I'll probably put a note in the across the screen as you're watching right now. So next, we are talking about Supernatural. This was announced also just a few days ago. Season 15 will be the final season for the CW series. Season 15 is not the season we're in now, so we're finishing up season 14. Season 15 will be next season. At the end of season 15, they will have done 327 episodes, which makes it not only the longest running CW scripted series, and you have to get all the qualifiers in there. It's the longest running scripted series on the CW, but it is also the longest running sci-fi genre series in American broadcast history. I'm pretty sure only technically Doctor Who and maybe 1 or 2 other British shows beat it. Everything. This is a huge milestone. So it will be missed, but it's still pretty epic. You've got 15 seasons to slog through. If you have not watched it, it's definitely a recommend. Next up, we are talking about Titans, and we're actually going to revisit Titans in the next bit. But first, we are talking about Rose Wilson. Remember, we talked a couple episodes on the Week in Nerdom about the casting of Slade Wilson. Now they have cast Rose Wilson, who will be played by Chelsea T. Zhang, and she is best known apparently for her role on Disney's Andy Mack. She plays Brittany on that show. Not really familiar with Disney's line of programming these days, as it's mostly, if not entirely, aimed at people younger than me, much younger than me. So that I'm not familiar with her work, though. I mean, she made it into arguably one of the better acted shows. I'm not going to say anything about the writing because we've talked about that, but one of the better acted shows on television or on streaming. It's hard to get this terminology right. Next is Gotham, and that is a show we don't talk about on this show at all, but it's interesting this little bit because this might be affecting Titans and the Arrowverse / the Berlantiverse, since the Arrow is going away. It seems that the series finale of this show is going to give us Batman, is going to show us David Mazouz in the suit, apparently. That's not explicitly laid out, though all of the advertising is showing a Batman suit, and they're saying that they're not going to repeat the Smallville issue in that we never saw that Clark Kent as Superman. This time we're apparently going to see Bruce Wayne as Batman, but he's such a little kid, it just doesn't make sense in my head. But perhaps this is why Titans was unable to use Batman for any extended period of time, and why we haven't seen any form of Batman short of Batwoman in the CW universe, because Gotham, for some freaking reason, had the rights to TV Batman. Just seems really weird and broken and doesn't make sense, but that's very potentially what their reasoning is. Next up is a real quick update about the Twilight Zone. Apparently, the first 4 episodes have been given out to reviewers. I am not lucky enough to be one of those reviewers, but the first 4 episodes have been given out to reviewers, and so far the reviews are not so good. It would seem that while everybody appreciates Jordan Peele's take on the property, it just is out of step. It has good intentions, it wants to do good things, but it just falls short. It seems to be the consensus. Though, on the other side of that, other side of that, we have The Tick. And season 2 of The Tick has also been released to reviewers. It will be streaming on Amazon as of April 5th, but it is getting praise from the early reviews. So that is nothing but great news. I'm super stoked about that. Again, April 5th is when that kicks back on. Moving next, we're talking... What's up? Just fair enough. Moving next, we're talking movie news, and we got production reports from Production Weekly about Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. They will go into production as of February 2021, likely because of James Gunn's current project being Suicide Squad for DC. Next is Scooby-Doo. Scooby-Doo is going into the movies again. This time it's going to be another animated movie. I can't believe I didn't report on this when it was initially announced, but we have a couple of casting announcements. We have Fred and Daphne have been casted as Zac Efron, and Amanda Seyfried will be voicing those 2 characters, which should prove pretty interesting. Next is The Craft, also from Production Weekly. We live in a crazy reboot culture, and actually there has been an update to this even since I did these notes. So The Craft is going to be our next 90s reboot, because apparently that's just exactly what we need. And set to direct, I'm going to mess up her name, so I got to Google it. Set to direct is... Where is her name? It's going to be produced by Blumhouse. And there we go. Oh, there it is. Zoe Lister-Jones. Zoe Lister-Jones is going to be the director for the reboot, and I don't think that's a thing that we need. That just feels off. Production will apparently begin on this reboot that we don't need in July. So next, we're talking Bill and Ted Face the Music. The movie's official Twitter account has announced officially, we speculated this a couple weeks ago, but officially it is now approved that William Sadler, who played Death in Bogus Journey, is going to play Death in Face the Music. So that's pretty freaking awesome for this most excellent adventure. Next is a how did I miss this news? There's a new zombie movie called The Dead Won't Die, which is set to star, and there's a whole list. If you check the description, there's going to be a whole list of people, but I'm just going to hit some of the amazing names. We have Bill Murray, Tilda Swinton, Iggy Pop, RZA, and Tom freaking Waits. And it's going to be released this June on June 14th. I couldn't really find a whole lot, like a synopsis or anything about the movie, but just based on the initial starring list we have, again, check the description, that is just going to be worth a watch just to see how they fit all of these people into this movie. Likely, a lot of these are going to be real quick bit parts, and then they'll be turned into zombies, but that's still going to be worth the watch. Next is Another interesting one, not super nerdy, traditionally nerdy, but more theater nerdy. We have another movie version of Macbeth is getting made. And the reason this is noteworthy is because Joel Coen of the Coen brothers is going to be the one directing, I believe. I'm pretty sure that's what he's doing. He can't just be producing. It has to be directing. So Joel Coen directing, and currently in talks to star in this movie is Denzel Washington and Frances McDormand. Just those names, that's a lot of star power in this movie. So that's going to be very interesting to see when it comes to life. Next up is Black Adam. We got an update from that hashtag show, who reportedly have some knowledge of this upcoming movie that seems to be stagnant for the last, 5 years? So, Adam, I'm going to butcher this last name, Adam Seitel, penned the script. Around about the end of 2017 is when the script was finished, but that is the latest iteration of the script that the studio is rolling forward, and it is, again, according to that hashtag show, is very much reliant on Jeff Johns' work in the early 2000s, a la the New 52, roughly. But also, in the script, he included Hawkman as the movie's antagonist of sorts. It's hard to call him an antagonist, A, because he's a superhero, but B, because the protagonist of the movie is going to be Black Adam, who is a villain. So kind of that'll be interesting to see how they can flip that on its head, kind of switch it around. But also the script is going to include appearances from Atom Smasher and Stargirl, and is going to somehow discuss or feel out a romantic relationship between those two characters. So it's kind of a pretty packed movie. They're looking for someone to play Hawkman who is big enough that they look like they'll be able to stand up against The Rock. So that casting could go for a while. Next, we have a quickie about the Eternals. This just actually broke last night on Variety. Angelina Jolie is in talks for a starring role in the Eternals movie, which is set to be directed by Chloe Zhao, and it's obviously the movie adaptation of the Jack Kirby comics. How much of the Kirby story we're going to get remains to be seen, though it would make a whole bunch of sense for them to do the origin, because it is a very unique origin for those characters. That's it for movies. Next, we are on to gaming, and there is actually kind of a significant amount of gaming compared to previous episodes anyway. First, we are talking about the Switch, and we talked actually a couple episodes ago about how there's a report that the Switch, that Nintendo is going to be doing a cheaper version of the Switch hardware that's going to be geared towards casual gamers, or more specifically going to be geared towards mothers and people buying a system for their younger child or niece or nephew or something who don't really understand what they're doing, but is still something that the child will want to play. So that just... Wall Street Journal claims to have sources that have confirmed that, but also have confirmed that there is going to be a more avid gamer-oriented version of the Switch as well. So theoretically, a more expensive, a more bells and whistles model that they're going to be rolling out. No word on when these two iterations of the Switch are going to hit the market, but if Wall Street Journal is talking about it, it can't be that well kept of a secret. So probably Christmas time this year, we'll start. Actually, no, probably about Halloween we'll start hearing about it officially, and then Christmas I would imagine is when they plan on rolling it out. So sometime November, December, so that way they can bump up their Christmas numbers again. Next up is similar news for the Xbox One. Microsoft is reportedly rolling out a diskless version of the Xbox One on May 7th. I could not substantiate this. I mean, there's a number of people who are reporting on it, but there was no substantial evidence that this is actually a thing. So take this one with a giant grain of salt. But May 7th apparently is the day Microsoft is going to roll out with this Xbox One S. And there's been a couple of leaks, but again, we can't substantiate leaks until Microsoft says, yes, that we are going to do this, and here's all the information. So interesting, but slightly less confirmed, because I don't know. I don't know what makes Wall Street more reliable, but they are. So next, just earlier today, or rather 2 days ago, because my brain works great, a couple of days ago, the developers behind Borderlands, Gearbox, they're at PAX East, which, if you don't know, is a nerd convention that really does more than just comic books. You can't really call it a Comic-Con, but PAX East, and the Gearbox confirmed that there's going to be a Borderlands 3. It is not a rumor anymore. They have a reveal trailer that is kind of freaking epic. You can go watch that, link in the description. There is so much in that trailer that you really just owe it to yourself. If you're a Borderlands player, if you dig those games, definitely go watch that and get yourself super hyped. No word on anything beyond the trailer outside of the fact that we are going to get more information April 3rd, so in just about a week. And sometime this spring is when they're planning on rolling it out. That very well could get pushed back, though, because it's not set in stone. Next is a really peculiar gaming piece of news. Five Nights at Freddy's is a thing that happens, and it's getting a VR iteration. So somehow Sony is deeply involved, so they're pushing this as a Sony VR experience, the PlayStation VR experience, but it is launching on all VR platforms. So Oculus and Vive and the Steam VR, all of them are getting it. So whether or not they're going to give preference to Sony, that has not been made clear, but Sony is somehow deeply involved. Maybe the Steelwool Games, the company that, Steve, I can't remember the name of the originator of Five Nights at Freddy's, but Steelwool Games might have some direct ties to Sony, so maybe that's why they're pushing it that way. But really interesting, Five Nights at Freddy's getting VR. I don't understand how that's going to play, but hopefully as we get closer to the date of release, which has not been given just yet, but hopefully as we get close to that date, we'll get a couple more trailers. Again, there is another trailer that you can watch in link in the description. I don't know how that gameplay is going to translate into VR. It'll be frightening, I'm sure, because jump scares are a thing, and having that headset on is definitely going to frighten you. But I don't know if it's going to be translatable. But then our last piece of gaming news is about the PlayStation 5. We've talked a few times in the past about PS5 rumors. This one comes directly, well, kind of in a roundabout way, directly from Sony. Sony filed a patent for things that seem to imply that they're going to be doing a couple of things potentially with the PS5. That's why I say roundabout, because it could be something that they're rolling out just digitally, which then would affect the PS4, but it very possibly could be starting with the PS5. It seems that they're going to be doing both digital gifting and digital trade-ins. So when you're done playing a game that you paid 60, 70, 80, 300, like Mortal Kombat 11 is going to be, if you've paid a boatload of cash to play this game and then you don't want to play it anymore, but you don't have a physical copy to go to GameStop or to go to whatever gaming store you go to, you're kind of at the current model, you're kind of screwed, because it's not a physical game. They can't do anything with the bit of information on your system. Well, Sony is apparently looking to amend that. And I think that's a really interesting, potentially could be a complete change for the industry itself. Could be one of the final things that they need to do to completely switch over to digital only content, because right now people enjoy the physical. I mean, with any medium, people really enjoy the physical copy in their hands, but a larger number of people don't really care about that physical copy. So it'll be really interesting to see how that rolls out. So that's the last of gaming, and then we only have one thing for comic books, which is going to round out the headlines section of this month, the live end of the month episode. Tongue-tied. And it's actually an X-Men update. So X-Men Red is done. Blue is done. Uncanny is taking a break. No, Uncanny's still going. Anyway, they're kind of shaving down the books that they have. And in so doing, they're starting up 2 other books, which are technically kind of the same book. One of them is called House of X, and the other is called Powers of 10, even though they write 10 as a Roman numeral, which then is X, so it reads Powers of X. Anyway, writing both of these series, which is one of the reasons why it's going to be considered just one book, but writing them is going to be Jonathan Hickman, who, if you know your comic books, you'll know that Hickman retired, quote unquote, from superhero comics like almost a decade ago. I think it was actually in the 90s, so potentially over a decade ago. He's been writing stuff over on IDW, I believe, or it was Image, one of the two. He's been doing personal projects on a smaller comic book label, is the point. And so Marvel is bringing him out of his quasi-retirement in order to write these 2 books. And in order, honestly, to revitalize the X-Men, because what should be one of the top-selling books really hasn't been for a long time, because it hasn't been very good. Hickman had a killer run in the 90s and really revitalized those characters, and a lot of Hickman's stuff we saw in the animated series back in the 90s too. So that's going to be super killer. Also on the projects, we have Pepe Larraz, who will be doing art for House of X, and R.B. Silva, who will be doing art for Powers of 10. This also, honestly, is very likely just Marvel trying to cash grab for more number ones, because they can do effectively one series, even though each book is kind of going to be its own thing, but they're going to alternate releases. So it's going to be weekly. Each book is going to be bi-weekly. You get one book every other week, but they're going to stagger. So you'll get 1 week, you'll get House of X, and the next week you'll get Powers of 10. And so it's going to alternate like that. So it's going to be continuous. And this is very likely just them doing a cash grab for more number ones, because number ones sell incredibly well. Well, I mean, it's Hickman, so hopefully that's not the only thing that they get out of this. Hopefully they do get the revitalization that they're looking for. But that, guys, is the end of the headline section for this month's live session. Next, I'm going to take a real quick breather, and then we're going to come back and do the conversation topic at hand, and that is the Hollywood actors versus voice actors. So you're going to see a real quick intermission thing, and we'll be right back. All right, so now for the second half. This is, again, normally would be the conversation, but it's just going to be essay style because didn't have anybody here to join the conversation, which again is totally cool, but whatevs. First, I forgot at the beginning of last portion of the last segment to thank the Rogues Roost here in Colorado, Loveland, Colorado to be specific. thank them very much for hosting me, for letting me do this, even during business hours. Hopefully next time we'll have people. This time, yeah, whatever. So, thank you to Josh and Harry here at the Rogues Roost who run this place, and just kind of a reminder to, if you're buying comic books, go to your local comic book shop and be a patron of local businesses, because they need your money more than Amazon or those other places that honestly don't even know you exist. So, that being said, voice actors. We all have our favorites, and so this begins as something of an extension from last month's live show. Quick refresher for anybody who did not see it, or if you don't follow me on Facebook or anything, you didn't know anything about it. Well, last month's episode was about animated series specifically, and comic books, and how mainstream pop culture doesn't take that seriously, doesn't take those two art forms seriously. They just dismiss it as being for kids. So this month, again, we're talking about voice acting, and more specific, voice actors. Back when I was a kid, there was a bit of an exclusive club for voice actors. Not that it was like exclusionary, although to be exclusive kind of implies exclusion, but it was just that there was an upper echelon of voice actors, and they primarily, and not exclusively, and we'll get into that, but primarily the voice actors of my childhood did voice acting. Very, very few, if any of them, did screen acting as well. Pardon me, I'm drinking a Mountain Dew. It's getting me all bubbly. So, it still is kind of a difficult job to get into. Any entertainment medium is difficult to enter into, because it takes a lot of talent, it takes personality, it takes charisma, and not everybody has that kind of stuff. So, and then just to be able to translate all of that with just your voice kind of made it a little bit more exclusive. So back when I was a kid, you had like Rob Paulson, you had Billy West, you had a bunch of different. I mean, the list goes and goes and goes and goes. And then you had actors like. Oh man, why did I just brain fart that? Mark Hamill, good Lord. Mark Hamill, who did both. And he was really the exception to the rule, because there was very little crossover. The crossover actually, honestly, probably started heavily, because I can't say exclusively that it was due to Disney, but at least started because of Disney in a decent part. Before, what was it? Lion King, there was really not a whole lot of crossover. You had Aladdin, I think, was after that was definitely after Lion King, and that was really, really notable for Robin Williams. And Robin Williams has actually done a few voice bits as well. I mean, he did the genie in Aladdin. He did Batty in Fern Gully. So he is another kind quasi-exception, though I feel like, and again, we'll get to this in a second, his contributions to this conversation are going to be more on the negative side. And I say that knowing that Robin Williams is a fantastic actor, and actually I am a giant fan of Robin Williams, even his voice work. So I'll clarify, but let me get to that. Anyway, so at the time when I was young, and actually long before that even, there was this kind of stigma with voice acting. It was often viewed as whatever actor might be doing it, if they started out as a screen actor, if they started as a live action film actor, then it would be viewed as them taking it easy, or honestly, to be blunt, kind of slumming it because they were there for the paycheck or whatever, which is really disheartening because a lot of early film actors got their start on radio. And so that's animation is kind of the amalgamation of a radio play and a comic book. And both of those mediums predate movies. So it really, and I said this when we introduced this in last month's episode, that's kind of offensive, don't you think? That's a little, oh, your art form's just for kids. Oh, we're doing you a favor by doing these things, by doing voices for your movie, for your short, for your series, whatever. And I really don't feel like that's conducive to a growing art form. I feel like I feel like the sentiment should be honor. You're honored to do this. And now, again, I said this was kind of an extension from last month. Instead of people admitting that animation, much like any other art form, or comic books, much like any other art form, has sections that are geared toward kids and also has sections that are geared very much towards adults. Instead of admitting these things out loud, they just want to grab a paycheck, and it's frustrating because honestly, in my eyes, and let me know if you disagree, but honestly, in my eyes, when you get and I'm going to use Robin Williams as the example. When you get Robin Williams to do a voice, sadly, he can no longer do voices, but when you get Robin Williams to do a voice, the focus is no longer on the character. The focus becomes, oh, that's Robin Williams doing that voice. Granted, it's and I feel like the point I'm trying to make is it's the same for other mediums too. I'm going to pull up a list real quick of actors who also did animated movies. So we have, oh God, that's right. We have Tom Hanks, Scarlett Johansson, Bruce Willis, Angelina Jolie, Mila Kunis, Will Smith, a bunch. There's so many, and that's the conversation that I wanted to start. Is, are we potentially looking at the death of the voice-only actor? Are actors like Rob Paulsen and Tress MacNeille and Jess Harnell and Maurice LaMarche and Billy West, are they a dying breed? Because we get a lot of kids shows, like a lot of the Adventure Time voices are also face actors. So, oh man, Oprah Winfrey even. So we're going to go through. This is a 30 celebrities who voiced animated characters. So Will Smith obviously is the lead in Shark Tale. Justin Timberlake did Trolls. Mila Kunis did Meg Griffin. As I was setting up, one of the guys here at the Rogues Roost made the point of, well, it just depends on how good a job they do doing the voice. And I feel like that is a great way to look at it, because you get a guy like Phil LaMarr who does the voice of Samurai Jack. Phil LaMarr got his start acting. Maybe not his start, but like became a known name because of Mad TV. So he started out as a live action actor. And now he does a million different voices. He's the Jon Stewart in the DC animated movies. He honestly, I haven't seen him do live action probably since the end of Mad TV. So very interesting. Mel Gibson did the John Smith and Pocahontas. I totally forgot about that. The conversation should be had that voice acting is something more than just being yourself in audio form, which oftentimes is all face actors do. Tom Hanks and Tim Allen as Buzz and Woody, kind of vice versa, being a pretty specific example, because Woody Allen. Did I say Woody Allen? I meant Tim Allen. Tim Allen wasn't the voice of Buzz in the series, in the TV series. They had somebody else mimic Tim Allen's voice. And honestly, you'd kind of be hard-pressed to tell the difference. So just being yourself is not the art form necessarily. I mean, obviously, you still have to be able to convey emotion and be believable as just the voice. But I feel like the masters of the art form, the ones that go down in history, often are the ones that you don't know their names because they become the character. I was listening to an interview with Billy West just the other day, about a day or two ago, and he does so many voices that you don't even realize. Zach Brannigan, just in Futurama, Zach Brannigan, Fry, Professor, the Professor, and he does Zoidberg, and then a million other just side character voices. And each one of them is a different voice. So I don't think it's a versus situation. I honestly think it's Hollywood kind of saying they can do a certain thing, and really the power goes to a guy like Rob Paulson, who did Raphael in the original Ninja Turtles animated series and currently does Donatello in the current Ninja Turtles animated series. And, well, I don't know, not the Rise of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the one previously, actually the 2 seasons previously, and does like the goofy voices and does a million voices on Animaniacs, and that's the kind of stuff that I feel like needs to be highlighted when we have this conversation about animated movies. Since I don't have anyone else to bounce this off of live in the studio today, that is where we're going to end it. Thank you guys for watching and joining me again on another live recording. I'm going to be doing this until they stop me. So if you want to join this conversation in real life, we are in the Rogues Roost here in Loveland, Colorado. We will be doing this the last week of every month from now until, again, Josh and Harry tell me I can no longer do it. There is a website, generallynerdy.net. There is a Patreon page if you want to support me more directly, patreon.com/generallynerdy. If you are new to the channel, subscribe, like, all of that jazz. If you like what I'm trying to do, then there's a thumbs up button. There's a thumbs down button too. You know, that's a thing. Thank you again for joining me on this. Before we go visit the website, before you click any of the stuff to the left of my face, before we do any of that, always remember, guys, that if it's generally nerdy, it's probably here.